Sup witches, welcome to my channel. If we've never met before, my name's Gianna and I'm a witch. Well, specifically, I'm a hedge witch, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. In this video, we're going to be talking about hedge witchcraft. I'm going to start by defining the practice a little bit, and then we'll talk about what the practice looks like and some of the tools for the trade. So what is hedge witchcraft? Well, to explain that, we're going to have a talk about hedges. So the hedge is what classically separates human society from the wild world. It was really common to use a hedge on the outskirts of town to separate that town from the woods that lay beyond. And this use of a hedge as a border is where we get the symbolism for the hedge in hedge witchcraft. So the hedge that we're talking about in hedge witchcraft is actually the border between our world and the spirit world. So just to discuss some of the symbolism here, the physical world is a lot like the town. We know our way around town, it's familiar to us, and we can live safely within the town away from the dangers of the wild world. The spirit world, however, is a lot like the woods. It's a place of uncertainty. We aren't familiar with it, and the things that we'll find there don't operate by human standards. So the duality of living on the hedge with one foot in the physical world and the other treading the spiritual world is really the foundation that hedge witchcraft is built on. So hedge witches are those who live and practice in this liminal space, not really belonging to this world or that world, yet being citizens of both. So the whole practice of hedge witchcraft really revolves around crossing the hedge and traveling into the spirit world. And this is a practice we call hedge riding or jumping the hedge. So in order to hedge ride, we have to enter into an altered state of consciousness because we travel in spirit. So there's a lot of trance and dream work involved in hedge witchcraft, and a lot of spells we cast are meant to help us enter into the spirit world, help us get into these trance states, and also support our hedge riding in some way, shape, or form. Now, of course, I still do magic other than simply spirit work. If I need to do a money spell or a healing spell or anything that I might need, I still do that, but the practice of a hedge witch tends to be very focused on our connection to the spirit world. So now that I gave a little bit of a definition to hedge witchcraft, there is a little bit of a common misconception that I want to take a moment to clear up. It seems like a lot of online resources confuse hedge witchcraft with being synonymous to green witchcraft. We're said to be witches who are focused on herbalism, plant magic, home remedies, and healing. It's honestly a little bit frustrating because a lot of these articles and Pinterest posts defining different types of witches don't even mention the hedge, and that's the defining aspect of hedge witchcraft. We got the name hedge witchcraft from an old Saxon word for hedge rider. Of course, you know, there are a lot of other things that go into witchcraft as a whole, and hedge witchcraft is no exception. But to not even mention the hedge, I just find that kind of funny. I think this misconception comes from the very old and more traditional practice of using entheogens to help facilitate the altered states of consciousness necessary for hedge riding. Now, these entheogens were derived from plants, and thus hedge witches usually cultivate a lot of knowledge in herbalism and wort cunning. Not only is working with entheogenic plants something that's been long entwined in the history of hedge witchcraft, but we also tend to be really friendly with the spiritual community around us, which means we end up talking to a lot of nature spirits. And, you know, this is simply because they're everywhere. They're probably the most common spirit around us at any given point, and we do learn quite a bit from them, which translates into plant knowledge. So I can definitely see where this misconception comes from, and, you know, even though we do involve quite a bit of green magic in our practice, this isn't the defining aspect of the practice at all. With that being said, let me talk a little bit about what's generally involved in the practice of hedge witchcraft. Well, like I said before, hedge riding is the defining aspect of hedge witchcraft. So a hedge witch is going to be doing a lot of meditation, trance work, and dream work. In relation to hedge riding, a hedge witch might also practice shape-shifting. In spirit, it's possible to take on many different forms, but more often than not, it's usually the form of an animal. It's not uncommon to find folklore where witches change into different animals, And we even find this in witch trial records. Now, of course, these confessions were given under torture, so we have to take them with a grain of salt, but I believe that they hint towards an earlier pre-Christian practice that involved some sort of spirit flight. But anyway, aside from just traveling to the spirit world, we also interact with its inhabitants. So Hedge Witchcraft usually involves quite a bit of spirit work as well. I actually already have a video series out on spirit work. And I think it's like 3 videos deep so far. So if you want to go learn more about spirit work and see how that fits in with Hedge Witchcraft, you can go check out those videos after you're done watching this one. Before I move on from the topic of spirit work, there is one aspect of spirit work that I have to touch on. It has a long history in Hedge Witchcraft, and that is the tradition of working with a familiar. Familiars are essentially spirits who offer assistance to a witch. And they do this because they've either formed a bond with that witch, or they were assigned to that witch by a deity or another spirit in authority. Familiars are particularly helpful to a hedge witch because they act as a guide on our spiritual journeys. They also teach us more about the other world and how to better interact with it. So along with working with a familiar, a hedge witch might also reach out to their ancestors, deities, spirit guides, fairies, and any other inhabitants of the spiritual world. Moving on, as a result from working so closely with the spirit world, a hedge witch might also have a particular talent or interest in divination. We can usually find solutions to problems in the physical world somewhere in the spirit world. On top of that, our familiars and guides can tell us all sorts of things like where to find lost objects or how to heal the sick. We can also find out things that happened in the past, things that are happening right now, and things that have not yet come to pass. Okay, so now that we have more of a general idea of what Hedge Witchcraft looks like, let's talk about some of the tools of the trade. Now, of course, not every witch is going to use tools. Some witches don't like using tools, but there are certain tools that are particularly useful in Hedge Witchcraft. So first we have to talk about the broom, more commonly known to witches as the besom. Well, you see, brooms, distaffs, and staves were commonly used in many practices that involved spirit flight or spirit journeying. In traditional Hedge Witchcraft, the broom was used alongside certain hallucinogenic ointments. And of course, in folklore, we see a lot of witches flying on brooms, distaffs, and other household objects. I and many others believe that this gives a hint towards spirit flight practices. So today, most witches use their broom for either protection by standing it upright in their home, or they use it for purification purposes, and they'll sweep out the negative energy in their home or the place where they're doing ritual without letting the bristles actually touch the floor. As a hedge witch, I use my broom for hedge riding. And while we're talking about brooms, I kind of have a cool announcement. I actually need to make a new broom. I had a broom and I had it for about 8 or 9 years. I made it by hand and I loved it. It was very important to me. But about a year ago, my broom snapped in half. That to me is the universe letting me know it's time to make a new broom. And I decided I'm actually going to make a video showing you guys how I make my broom and then also how I enchant it for hedge riding. I'm also going to make another video to accompany that one that goes over how I actually use the broom in my hedge riding practice. So it's going to give you all the details on exactly how to get your broom up and running and turn it into this beautiful, powerful ritual item to use in trance. But really quickly, I'm just going to explain the gist of it so you guys have an idea of what this tool is used for in Hedge Witchcraft. So when I have a broom that I want to use for hedge riding, I do an entire ritual to enchant the broom with the intention of connecting me to the spirit world. So not only have I intertwined this energy of connecting with the spirit world into the tool itself, but working with the tool over and over and creating the mental association that this broom means we're going into trance now. It's a really nice trick to kind of help yourself get into the right state of mind easier. The association is actually so deep-seated within my mind that when I was working with my broom like all the time, it actually appeared in my dreams, and I was able to use that as a symbol to wake up my conscious mind and then begin lucid dreaming. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm gonna talk more in detail in other videos, like I said, but for the sake of time right now, we gotta move on because this is a pretty lengthy video. So another tool that a hedge witch might use is some sort of instrument. Drums seem to be the most popular in trance work, but sound bowls, shakers, and even metronomes can be used. It's all about creating a repetitive noise that you can follow and focus on when you're trying to slip into trance. And just like the broom, you can actually make this a symbol of your trance work, and just hearing the noise of that instrument can help prepare your mind to enter into trance. While we're talking about sound, another interesting thing you might want to try are binaural beats. And that's basically a recording that plays one frequency of sound in one of your ears and another frequency of sound in the other ear, and together they create a new frequency that's said to tune your brain and actually help you get into these altered states of consciousness. I've experimented with binaural beats in the past, and I have to say there is something to it. They are powerful, and I definitely felt very energized and connected with the spirit world. They did help me get into altered states of consciousness, but I don't like them because they give me tinnitus for about 30 minutes after I take the earbuds out, and it really annoys me. It makes me feel weird. I don't like that, so I don't personally use them. But I know the tinnitus thing doesn't happen to everyone who uses the binaural beats. So you guys can try it out for yourself and see how it goes, and if you like them, let me know in the comments. So moving on from sound, let's talk about smell. Certain incense and essential oil can help you get into a trance state and altered states of consciousness through scent association. It's actually recommended that you work with the same incense or the same essential oils or the same scented candle every single time you go into trance, because after a while, that scent helps your brain recognize when it's time to go into an altered state of consciousness. And by now, you guys are probably starting to figure out how important mental association is in any sort of trance work. So the last set of tools that I'm going to talk to you guys about in this video are your tools for spiritual communication. Now, this is going to be your tarot cards, oracle cards, your crystal ball, your scrying mirror, Ouija boards, pendulums, whatever it is that resonates with you. I mean, there's a lot of variety, but that's really why I find these tools valuable, because they offer diversity in how you're communicating with these spirits, because every tool that you use is going to give you a slightly different experience in communication. And not only that, but they add all these different layers of language that the spirit can use to communicate with you. So sometimes I feel like that makes it easier on the witch and the spirit communicating. But yeah, I really like the diversity. I really like working with all these different tools, and I find them extremely helpful. So that's really it for tools. And remember, this is not a complete list. I just gave some of the tools that I found represented Hedge Witchcraft really well, and some tools that I found particularly useful in my practice as a hedge witch. Now, of course, not every witch will use tools, so they aren't a necessary aspect of the craft, but I do find them extremely useful. I hope I gave you guys a little bit of a better understanding of what hedge witchcraft is and what the practice looks like. I did try to keep this very general because it's hard to define a practice. No two witches practice the same way, even if they share a title, so I tried to just talk about the bare bones of the practice. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate if you take the time to give it a like, because not only does it help the channel, but it's a great way to show your support, and it's a good way to let me know that you like the content I'm doing and I know I'm on the right track. Also, I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments section. Let me know what you thought of this video. If you're learning hedge witchcraft or you're a hedge witch yourself, say hi. I would absolutely love to meet more hedge witches like myself. And if you have a question, definitely leave it in the comments section and I will do my best to answer it to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, I can't wait to hear from you guys, and until next time, happy casting!